everyone. Welcome back to Femme on the Spectrum, where we peel back the layers of what it means to be autistic, neurodivergent, and let's be honest, just plain fabulous. I'm your host, Elizabeth, and I'm thrilled to have you here with me. Today, we're diving into the often misunderstood and deeply magical world of autism. Yes, magical, like glittering unicorns riding on rainbows, but with spreadsheets and hyperfixations. Get ready to dismantle some myths and celebrate the incredible strengths that come with being neurodivergent. Whether you're autistic, have ADHD, or just someone curious about what it all means, this episode is for you. Stick around because we're going to debunk some old school misconceptions and highlight how wonderfully unique and powerful neurodivergent minds can be. All right, folks, let's kick things off by tackling a myth that seriously needs to die, like yesterday. I'm talking about the idea that autism is a deficit. Just saying that out loud makes me want to roll my eyes so hard I can see my brain. Seriously, who came up with this nonsense? Think of autistic brains as a different operating system. Like, would you call a MacBook defective just because it doesn't run Windows? No way. It's just a different way of processing. And honestly, some of the processing power of autistic brains is pure magic. We've got unicorn level brilliance here, people. Here's a little nugget of knowledge for you. Did you know that between 50 and 80% of autistic individuals have above average intelligence? Yep, you heard that right. We're not just here, we're outsmarting the room. But the kicker? Too many people don't even realize we're autistic because we're so good at blending in. More on that later, but for now, let's bury this myth for good. Autism is not a deficit. It's a different, deeply valuable way of thinking. All right, who's ready to break down more barriers? Stick around, we've got so much more to unpack. All right, listeners, hold on to your hats because we're about to tackle the fascinating yet exhausting world of masking. First up, let's define what masking is for those who might not know. Masking is when autistic people camouflage their traits to fit in with neurotypicals. Think of it like a chameleon blending into its surroundings. It's an art form, and many autistic individuals have mastered it. We're talking about picking up on social cues, mimicking behaviors, and using scripted dialogues for social interactions. Picture a spy collecting intel and blending into the enemy camp. That's us, minus the trench coat and sunglasses. But here's where it gets interesting. Masking is a superpower in its own right. It's like we're winning Oscars for best performance in a social setting. No joke. We can navigate social gatherings, meetings, you name it, all while managing to appear neurotypical. That polite laugh you hear at a work meeting, yep, that's likely me pretending I understand your golf joke. It's not about deceiving people. It's about surviving in a world that often feels foreign to us. Now, let's not pretend it's all glitz and glamour. Masking can be downright exhausting. Imagine constantly performing a role that's not really you, just to fit in. It's like wearing a heavy costume all day, every day. Sure, it's a protective mechanism that helps us get by, but it can also lead to severe burnout. When you spend all your energy pretending to be something you're not, there's no fuel left for simply being who you truly are. That's the biggest challenge, balancing the need to fit in with the need to be authentic. And for many of us, this balance is incredibly hard to maintain. So let's take a moment to appreciate the autistic individuals in our lives who are navigating this demanding terrain every single day. Next time you see someone who seems socially on point, remember that there might be a whole lot more going on beneath the surface. Their energy and perseverance are nothing short of heroic. Okay, coming up next, we're going to dive into autistic strengths like hyperfocus and pattern recognition. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. All right, folks, now it's time to shine a spotlight on some of the most awesome strengths that come with being autistic, hyperfocus, and pattern recognition. These are like superhero abilities that you won't find in just anyone. Let's break it down. You know that feeling when you're so absorbed in something you lose track of time and space? Yeah, that's hyperfocus. It's like having a laser beam for attention. When an autistic person zeroes in on their special interest, they're unstoppable. Imagine being so deep into a subject that nothing, absolutely nothing, can distract you. I'll give you an example. I have a friend who spends weeks, and I mean weeks, researching historical shipwrecks. She can't remember her neighbor's name, but if you ask her about the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, you're basically getting a TED talk. It's that intense. This hyper focus can transform knowledge into expertise, making autistic people masters of their chosen subjects. And then there's pattern recognition. Autistic minds are like the Sherlock Holmes of patterns. Ever been in a meeting and someone suddenly goes, wait, isn't this just like what happened last quarter? But the Sakshirkras. That's probably the autistic person quietly connecting the dots. It's like having a built in detective mode, seeing relationships and patterns that others might miss. This isn't just about noticing the obvious, it's about uncovering the hidden connections that can lead to breakthroughs. Whether it's in coding, art, music, you name it, pattern recognition is an incredible strength. Now, let's be clear, these strengths don't mean every autistic person is some kind of savant like Rain Man. But it does mean that when it comes to creative and innovative thinking, autistic individuals bring something uniquely valuable to the table. So, the next time you encounter someone who's a little bit different, think about these superhero strengths they're likely to possess. It might just make you see them in a whole new light. Stick around because we're going to delve into empathy and autism next. And let me tell you, it's going to be eye opening. Now, let's shift gears and talk about empathy and autism. This is a topic that's often misunderstood, but boy, do we need to clear some things up. There's this outdated myth that autistic people lack empathy. Let's squash that right now. If you've ever heard someone say autistic individuals can't feel empathy, let me hit you with a reality check. We often feel too much empathy. Imagine having your emotional volume dialed up to 11 all the time. When someone else is upset, we're not just noticing it, we're absorbing those emotions like emotional sponges. The thing is, we might express empathy differently. So, just because we don't always show it in the expected way doesn't mean it isn't there. Picture this: someone comes to you with a problem. A neurotypical person might give a comforting hug or say some reassuring words. Meanwhile, an autistic person might go straight into problem solving mode. We dive headfirst into offering practical solutions. It's not that we don't care, it's that we care so much we want to fix things immediately. When someone's struggling, our first instinct is often to solve the problem rather than just providing emotional comfort. And trust me, it's all done out of love and compassion. Sometimes it comes across as a little, well, blunt, but the heart is in the right place. We feel deeply, we just show it in our own unique, wonderfully quirky ways. So remember, empathy isn't about how you show it, it's about how deeply you can feel it. And let me tell you, autistic people can feel it with the intensity of 1,000 suns. It's just another part of the magic that comes with the neurodivergent territory. All right, stay tuned because we have more to cover. We're going to discuss the challenges of blending in and the energy it takes to survive in a neurotypical world. This is Femme on the Spectrum, and I'm your host, Elizabeth. See you after the break. Welcome back, everyone. Now it's time to tackle a subject that hits close to home for many of us: the challenge of blending in. Being autistic in a neurotypical world often means we become experts at mimicking social norms. It's like being an actor, constantly performing in a play where the script isn't ours. We learn to observe social cues, mimic behaviors, and even develop our own scripts for conversations. Think of it as being a spy, collecting intel, and blending into enemy territory. That's us, minus the fancy gadgets and trench coats. But the reality is, being undercover in a world that wasn't designed for us can be incredibly draining. We spend so much mental and emotional energy making sure we fit in that we often forget to take care of ourselves. It's an act of survival, not just a performance. We try to navigate a world that feels foreign and that navigation takes a toll. Masking our true selves might help us socially, but it comes at a significant cost. The constant pretending can lead to severe burnout. Imagine wearing a heavy costume all day, every day. It's protective, but also stifling. When you spend all your energy pretending to be something you're not, there's no fuel left for simply being who you truly are. So let's appreciate the autistic individuals in our lives who are navigating this challenging terrain every day. Next time you see someone who seems socially on point, remember there might be a whole lot more going on beneath the surface. Their energy and perseverance are nothing short of heroic. Okay, coming up next, we'll discuss how we can create a world that's more understanding and accommodating for autistic individuals. So stick around. This is Femme on the Spectrum, and I'm your host, Elizabeth. See you after the break. Welcome back, fabulous listeners. We've talked about the magic and the myths, the masking and the strengths, but now it's time to dive into how we can make this world more inclusive for autistic individuals. Spoiler alert, it's not about curing autism, it's about embracing and celebrating it. First off, let's flip the script on how society views autism. Too often, autism is seen as something that needs to be fixed or cured. Oh, as if the goal isn't to change autistic people to fit the world, but to change the world to better accommodate autistic people. Imagine if the world saw autism not as a tragedy, but as a unique and valuable way of thinking. Yep, it's all about acceptance and inclusion, folks. Now, you might be asking, Elizabeth, how do we even start to make spaces more inclusive? Great question. Here are some practical steps. Number one, create sensory friendly environments. This could be as simple as offering noise canceling headphones or providing a quiet space for those who get easily overwhelmed. Sensory overload is real, and just a little consideration can go a long way. Number two, educate yourself and others. Knowledge is power, and understanding more about autism can break down barriers and create a more empathetic community. Share resources, attend workshops, listen to autistic voices. Heck, share this podcast episode. Number three, embrace flexibility. Whether it's in the workplace, at school, or in social settings, be open to different ways of doing things. Maybe someone needs more time to complete a task, or they communicate better through written words rather than spoken ones. Flexibility and understanding can make all the difference. And finally, number four, speak up and advocate. If you're in a position to make changes, use that power for good. Advocate for policies and practices that make spaces more inclusive. Sometimes a little push can create big waves. So there you have it, folks. We don't need to change autistic individuals. We need to change the world to be more inclusive and accepting. Let's make this a world where everyone can be their true, authentic selves without fear or discomfort. Because the world is way more magical when we all shine in our unique, fabulous ways. All right, that's it for today's segment on creating an inclusive world. We'll be right back after this break with our closing thoughts, so don't go anywhere. This is Femme on the Spectrum, and I'm your host, Elizabeth, reminding you to keep it fabulous and neurodivergent. All right, fabulous listeners, it's time to wrap things up. But before we go, let's recap today's journey through the magical world of autism. We started by shattering the myth that autism is a deficit and celebrated it as a different, deeply valuable way of thinking. We marveled at the incredible strengths like hyperfocus and pattern recognition, and we cleared up the big misconception around empathy. Remember, autism isn't something that needs fixing or curing. It's a powerful, unique way of experiencing the world. So let's embrace it with open arms and open minds. And hey, if this episode sparked a few questions or got you thinking, reach out. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who could use a dash of neurodivergent magic in their life. And for all the links and resources mentioned today, check out the show notes. That's all for this episode of Femme on the Spectrum. I'm Elizabeth, reminding you to stay fabulous, stay curious, and most importantly, stay proudly neurodivergent. See you next time, folks.